Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone has been having a great time at AFRIF. Are we still moving close? Seated. All right. Good afternoon. My name is Nkechukwu Otike Odibi. I am the Senior Counsel, Legal and Business Affairs at Papaya Studios, and I will be moderating our panel with our very interesting guests today. So let me start by introducing our guests. First, we have Mr. Efe Omorogbe. Mr. Efe Omorogbe is a creative entrepreneur, and he is the co-founder of Hypertech Limited and also Buckwild Media Limited. Also, I believe we will be joined by Mr. Bada Akintunde Johnson. Great. Welcome. Lovely to meet you. I love your jackets. Mr. Bada is the country manager, Paramount Africa for Nigeria. We would also be joined later on by Osikena Derisu, who is also known as Osi Suave. He'll be joining us shortly. Good afternoon. It's great to meet you both. So I'm looking forward to having a very engaging conversation.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, good afternoon, man.
And tapping from your wealth of knowledge, because I did a little bit of research before coming here, and I was going on and on and on. So I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with you today. So for starters with film, music, we know that music is a very big part of film. It teaches you, it leads you to emote. There's a significant difference when you're watching a film that's silent and when you're watching a film that has music ingrained into it. So my first question would be, in your experience, how important do you think music is in film and in storytelling generally? It goes beyond film, it goes into advertising, it goes into everything, really.
The importance of music and fame, it's for me, it's very difficult to, to quantify. Because I think it's impossible to separate one from the other. It's such an important element that what you see today, what we know today as film or TV production and all, that will probably be a whole different type of experience, without music. And I think the easiest way to underscore it, really, because you don't want to imagine what film would be without music, is to, check the perspective. A film that has great music versus a film that has not so great music. I think that's probably the most practical way to access and appreciate the difference, that not just music to film, but the quality of the music that, you use in the film.
I think that it's, as Efe said, it's almost impossible to separate the two. Music as a standalone art form is probably the most powerful way to get storytelling done, which is why, whereas a typical movie could last from, if it's a short film, maybe between 30 minutes to a feature, which is 2 hours, 3 hours, a piece of music can be used to convey an entire story within 2 to 3 minutes. When you bring the two together, you have such an impossible to resist piece of art, which is why, as he said, when it is well done, it just delivers, it just works. And this morning I was thinking about the early films that made an impression on me growing up. And I remember how connected I was to just about any movie that had to do with the apartheid regime in South Africa growing up. And in the 90s, early 90s particularly, late 80s, early 90s, there were loads of films that focused on that particular problem in Africa. And I remember films like Sarafina. I don't know how many of you have seen it. You know, and I grew up still singing, even as an adult, still singing a lot of those songs. And as you would know, you know, internationally, especially Hollywood, which always has to be the reference, when a budget for a movie is drawn, a significant chunk of that budget, in terms of priority, line item wise, by the time you take our cast rather, and equipment, typically the third or the fourth biggest line item will be music, because aside just the theme songs, which these days will go into like a body of work that gets released independently on its own, you also have, so those typically are commissioned, you know. So the producers of the movie will contact some of these big record companies to deliver tracks that speaks to certain themes within the movie. Then there's also a bunch of licensed, already recorded stuff, you know. So almost every 2 to 3 seconds in the movie has a particular sound that is scored deliberately to communicate whatever emotion it is that those minutes or seconds are supposed to be communicating. Which is why if you look at how well they do with music and compare it to a developing market like ours, you can see the huge opportunities for improvement. Because typically what we find here is people just sort of grab popular music because they think that it will drive attention and eyeballs, or like in the Yoruba film industry, just commission one singer who sings something that is related to the theme, not necessarily expertly carrying and conveying the emotion, just something that, you know, constantly reminds you of the title of the movie a lot of times. So there's a lot of opportunities there, but there is no overemphasizing the impossibility of divorcing music from film, because from the very beginning, you know, those two art forms have always sort of gone together, and the level to which you can deliver the story is more often than not dependent on how you are able to use music to help it. Music, soundtracks, sound effects, all of those things, they have to be a part of the deal.
With your kind permission, I'd like to ask my brother Bada to apologize for the snide comment he made about one artist doing a song that's almost like a breakdown of the story of the film, right? Apologize to two productions. Stanley Okori, I think. I go chop your dollar. Is anybody familiar with that stuff?
Yes,
right?
Very familiar.
Okay. Then I saw another film back in the day. It's called Spanner.
I never saw this too.
Okay, so there's a movie called Spanner, yeah, and there's a corny soundtrack that was delivered right from heaven, right? It speaks to exactly what you've said, but the only reason I remember those two films today is down to those corny soundtracks that were produced for the film. But jokes apart, just to add, I was having a conversation with a producer friend of mine, and we're discussing film projects and budgets. And she mentioned a particular project that she was looking to do. And she was saying that the budget would probably be around 7 to 10 million naira. And I said, please, when you hit that project, I'd like to come in turn. I want to sit with you, I want to observe how you're going to make a film with a 7 to 10 million naira budget. And she said, why? I said, because I can't even use 7 to 10 million naira to make music, just music for a film, right? So if I were to put a film, together a budget, I would not, fear no go let me allocate 7 million naira to the music, because who am I going to go to make the music, to write, to produce, and who am I going to go to license? What quality of music do I want to license with a 7 million naira budget? So that's just like adding to, what he said. But if you really want to understand the context of what music can do or has done for film projects, you shut your eyes and you think Guardians of the Galaxy, right? For example, two things would hit you: the costumes and the music. Every Guardian of the Galaxy installment has music straight out of the 70s, 80s, disco, funk inspired stuff. And the presence is so, sometimes you're waiting, you're just anticipating for, Star-Lord to just, hit one of those, so for me, it's impossible to separate the characters, the story, the storytelling from the soundtrack that drives everything. And of course, I asked a friend, he's a movie buff. We share ideas, reviews and stuff about movies. But I sent her a bill, a two-tier bill for an infringement. One infringement is that she's not watched the movie Grease, John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John from 1978. She's not watched the movie. So there's a 100,000 naira penalty for not watching the movie. And there's a 300,000 naira penalty for not being familiar with the soundtrack of the movie Grease. Because the movie is here. The soundtrack is on top of this building. It's just amazing how what music can do to film. And again, what he has highlighted is really powerful, because music on its own is such a powerful tool for storytelling that every mood, every situation, every era of your life has a soundtrack, right? We're not telling the story now. Just if you think back to your university days, there's a soundtrack for that period of your life. 2, 3, 4 songs that once they start playing, now they teleport you back to those days, right?
Back, yeah.
There's a soundtrack for joy. There's a soundtrack for sorrow. There's a soundtrack for grief. There's a soundtrack, all human emotions. Anger, war has a soundtrack. Conflict has a soundtrack. And that is in real life date. You connect all emotions to some kind of music. So it's impossible to tell a story that has conflict, tell a story that has fun, tell a story that has party, tell a story that has lovemaking without the natural soundtrack for baby making that exists in a day-to-day living. So I think the both is separable, and one of the key things that I'm hoping that we can really develop in this industry is the appreciation of what music, the place of music in storytelling, in filmmaking, in television, and so we can really grow that aspect of the game, because we've moved from a position where this time 15, 20 years ago, producers will actually call you to inform you that they've used music off your repertoire for their films. And can you believe this? They would expect you to be excited, like they just did you a huge favor of jacking your music. Yeah.
Music promotion. But yes, I completely agree with you. I also agree that in a lot of our older films, we kind of had soundtracks that really they did live with us at the time. I know recently this song came back into circulation, The Billionaire, and everybody was singing, everybody remembered the film that it came from. So while we don't necessarily have the exact extent that Hollywood does with soundtracks, it still is a part of our lives. For me even, I remember when I was much younger, I was by the side of the road and a car was headed towards me, like it was probably going to hit me. But somehow in my head, I thought there was going to be like a sound somewhere saying, like a sound of alarm before the car hit me to let me know that the car was coming. So music really does get into our subconscious in that way. But do you think that the Nigerian audience is sophisticated to the point where they realize, oh, this is great music in this film, and this is not great music in this film? Do you think we've gotten to that point?
Yeah. I think that one will be paying a load of disrespect to Nigerian movie on the audiences to assume that the sophistication to understand what they are consuming or the quality of it isn't there. Of course it is. The same eyeballs they used to watch Hollywood films and the same brain they used to appreciate and understand them. It's the same set of organs and they used to watch Nigerian films. Admittedly, they do make adjustments, and we're thankful for that, because I think it is unfair to expect that our industry, which literally started maybe some 60, 70 years ago, will be at par with Hollywood that started over 100 years ago, you know. So I think that what the Nigerian audience is waiting for, in the same way that they patiently waited for our music to step up across the board, not just in the quality of the audio, but also the quality of the music videos. And when it arrived, we can all see how we all have embraced it. I remember when I was doing music in the mid-90s, you know, radio stations never used to play our records. I used to trek all the way. I mean, so that you guys don't sort of think I was probably Kenyan growing up, because I used to do very great distances. For those of you who've ever been to AIT before, right? It's completely out of town. Completely. And myself and my two band members will trek great distances to go there and beg for them to play our records. And AIT Repower, incidentally, were one of the few that would even play. But the sheer volume of what they had to play meant that you had to go and beg. Now, I'm not sure there's there's a lot of radio stations now who play foreign music above, you know, because we have embraced our own as the quality has continued to elevate. Similarly, I feel like the average, you know, movie buff or fan in Nigeria or follower is basically invested emotionally first, and so wishes the best for our industries, recognizes that there are still gaps that need to be filled, but isn't exactly discriminatory as to condemn outrightly. Even for those who don't necessarily go to the cinemas to spend money to buy tickets, they still watch, you know, on streaming platforms, they still watch on YouTube. And when I look at the numbers that Nigerian movies do on YouTube, for instance, they're absolutely insane, you know. And these days, I mean, there's a shift in the imbalance in terms of the territories the eyeballs are coming from. Some 5 years ago, they predominantly came from outside of here, but I checked with, you know, the YouTube guys recently, and I was quite encouraged by the sheer number of Nigerians who actually are watching these things from here. So the standards need to elevate, there's no doubt about that, but as he said, you know, to also look at the past or the present and write it off will be a disservice, because as much as maybe there were no scored sounds, there were no professionally done soundtracks and whatnot to the levels of Hollywood, there are still, like he said, music that literally lived with us many years after we've watched the music. There's a particular song that came to my mind here that I don't even know what the story of the movie is about anymore. I don't know how many of you remember this song. Yeah, man. Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, man. Oh,
Yes.
Oh, yeah, man.
But I was trying to audition. I'm not signing any talent.
You know why it stuck with me? Because the part that says, in this life, you reap what you sow. Yeah, man. Oh, yeah, man.
Please give me a round of applause for my panelists. Can you hear that voice?
Anytime I wanted to do something bad, that part always came to me like, in this life, you are going to reap what you sow. And so without even understand or remembering the details of the movie anymore, it must have been a movie about someone doing bad. And of course, so in terms of how prescriptive it was, that's what we're talking about. But I just wanted to sort of compare and contrast that to what obtains in the outside world when we're talking budgets. Like my boss was talking about 7 million being the total budget of a movie, right? Now, I have a friend who is a guitarist, a church guitarist from here. He was playing in my church, actually. He relocated to America just some 7 years ago, right? And he was touring with bands, but wasn't really making a lot of money. He was actually squatting with people, trying to, month on month, trying to hustle rent and whatnot. Until someone introduced him to the world of sync licensing and told him, sit in your studio, make records, sign up to these agents, they will shop your music around, blah, 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 and it would end up in commercials, in games, in movies, and whatnot, whatnot. I kid you not. Since like the second year of the guy signing up to an agency, he's gone from maybe earning 20,000, 25,000 a year from music to well over 200, 300K. And all he has to do is to create different kinds of genre, a lot of times not even voiced. He'll create the instrumental and send the stems, which is the individual parts of the guitar, the drums, or send it to the agency, and they shop it around. And as people use it, he just gets paid. He gets paid. So that's how huge the difference is between where we are and where we need to be. And I do believe that we're heading towards where we need to be.
I'll take us back to, okay, so the first time I mentioned that you should apologize to producers of two soundtracks from two movies, it was a joke. But this time, I'm a lot more serious now. It would be a disservice to a lot of our productions, a chunk of, not a chunk, a small percentage of our productions to assume that we didn't get the music right, that new Nollywood, my apologies, that, we're just having this conversation today. People are just discovering the value of quality music and film or television. No, I totally disagree. So I was born, and I use myself as a typical example. I was born and raised in Warri. I schooled in Warri and Saple before I made it to Unilag eventually. My first language is Pidgin. My second language is Pidgin. I speak a little bit of English, passively, but my parents, my dad is Edo, Benin. My mom is, Isoko / Ishekiri / Urobo. My mom speaks Yoruba, For some reason, if you're raised in the time I was raised in Warri, usually you lived in a very cosmopolitan setting where the kid next door is Kwale, the next person is, Ijo, the next person is Urobo. So our common language, that's why the pidgin became such a useful tool, right? So my mom would call me in Isoko, I'll respond in English. She'll send me a message, in Urobo. I would mess up the stuff, the task. She would scold me in Shakiri, So I picked up the so I could understand some of this language, but I just didn't have enough practical, yes, to be proficient in terms of speaking. But so there were a bunch of songs that I was like very, very familiar, very cool with. One of the songs that marked my childhood, my growing up, was a song called Aye by a producer, director, actor called Chief Hubert Ogunde. He had this theater, stuff, right? Now, if you were to play that song today, if you were to go to YouTube and pull up that song, I do not understand Yoruba, but every note of that song, I could score, I could just run through it. It was theater music that was recorded for commercial release, right? Within that whole period, too, there was this show called Hotel de Jordan on NTV Benin. It was huge. The soundtrack, I wish I could sing. The soundtrack is probably as good as anything out of Nollywood from that era. In short, there was a particular character called Idemudia, right? The two lead characters, a guy called Idemudia and a guy called Kokori, right? It was like, it was like a housekeeper, so to speak. I don't want to say a servant. So sometimes he got into altercations, with his boss, and they say, nasty stuff to him, and he goes somewhere to lament, and he laments through music. And everybody growing up with that in that whole space, the music from that show was so powerful. I'm not even sure if it was the show that made the music or the music that made the show, right? That's the same voice that you heard. There was an NTA show. They had this, back in the day, NTA used to have these competitions, right, where they had like film, TV production festivals, and different NTA stations would send entries. NTA Benin sent an entry that won the award that year. It was called Pot of Life. I'm not sure if anybody is aware of, a TV miniseries called Pot of Life, right? It had this Edo cultural type music. And it's the same guy guy who played the Demudia character that performed the song. It was a national hit. And a key part of why it was so popular was the music. Once the music came, if you knew New Masquerade, so we've always had a tradition of matching great music, with great TV shows and great films. On the general, so I wanted to just establish that it's not something we're inventing just 5 years now or talking going forward. But at the time when filmmaking became democratized, or by the time we moved to home video, where guys can just grab like a VHS camera, get 10 actors, tell a story, the issues of quick turnaround, lack of structures, lack of budget, affected how much attention was paid to the music that was attached to the film. So for a long time, it became a hit and miss type situation where once in a long while you hear, "Oh, Yibo man, I go chop your dollar. I go make your money disappear," right? And it's everywhere. But I do not think that a song, that piece of music is inferior to what I heard from Sound of Music or what I heard from any of the big, Nollywood, Hollywood productions. No. But I'm back to the question of whether Nigerians appreciate, whether the audience is sensitive to great music. They are sensitive to the deployment of, so they're sensitive to the existence of great music in film and television. They're sensitive to the apt deployment, because again, you can have great music and not deploy it in the most effective way, right? So it's there. It's always been. It's always going to be. However, what I think the Nigerian audience, what they learned to do over the last 2 decades, was to know when to pay attention to just the stories, and know when to expect other production values, elements to be higher, right? So I think Nollywood grew very quickly because more than anything else we're getting from the West on TV or on film, the stories were a lot more relatable. So the audience can sit through a 1 hour, 30-minute film and shut their minds to sonic inadequacies and all of that, and just follow the story. So we could pick and choose and all of that. I think that's basically what happened. That's my opinion.
Thank you for that. I want to approach it from the side of the artists now. So we understand that movie producers have now come more into an understanding of the importance of music in film, and they are now seeking sync licenses. How do the artists and the musicians position themselves to now have their music or be parts of original compositions that are now included in film, both locally and internationally?
So there are different dimensions to it, but two major ones, local and international. The international piece, I think, is sort of ahead for obvious reasons. It's more lucrative. So there's there's a few Nigerian artists whose work or publishing sits abroad. And because of that, there's a higher chance that they will be used in movies. I thought the last, was it Black Panther?
Yes.
Had Burner on it, had Thames on it, had Ira Star on it. So because of the growth of Afrobeats as a music genre, now Hollywood producers who are either producing African stories, like Black Panther, which is a story of a fictitious African city, or a historical piece like Woman King. You know, they know to not just put anything, a soundtrack, or license something from a library. They know, you know, they can contact people of Nigerian extraction, you know, who are kicking it at the highest level, who can deliver those soundtracks to them. So there's a few Nigerian artists who, at that level, are benefiting or positioned to be able to participate in that economy. But domestically, I was going to mention how long I've been in talent management, but I remembered who was sitting to my right, so I swallowed it. I've been working in talent management for like 20 years, and worked with quite a number of artists from you know, upstarts to A-listers. And I know that the focus is usually in 2 or 3 areas. You know, you're looking at these days streaming, you're looking at live, you know, shows, and you're looking at endorsements. Essentially, nobody's really looking at sync licensing as an opportunity. And for someone who has had a life as an advertising creative director, in my time as creative director over a decade, I must have shot over 500 commercials, without a doubt. And all of those commercials used music. And I know how we used to license music. More often than not, you know, and I was sitting on a panel a few days ago talking about depictions in movies and how they've been skewed towards fair-skinned people. It's the same way we were picking music. We were always looking to pick foreign music first, before the local options. Yes, in most commercials, you know. But these days, even when you're looking to license, believe it or not, it's a nightmare sometimes. I produce a reality show, a music reality show, and we have, by Nigerian standards, a sizable budget for music rights every year. And then, because there is, unlike what you have in the West, where, as I said, there are agents, you know, that you can contact and license. They have a library, they have a catalog that you can pick and choose from. You literally have to chase after, who's Simi's publishing sitting with, you're basically spending days upon days trying to find out who to license what from. And so it can be a nightmare. So a lot of times, what you find are movie producers who have go-to musicians that they work with. Number one, those people already understand what budgets they have and can work around it. And it's historical as well. As we said, Nollywood films have always had great soundtracks. The late Samuel Okposo, for instance, first and foremost made his name as a soundtrack producer before he became a mainstream gospel artist. And you can mention a number of people like that. In the commercial space in the early 90s, it was Sonny Neji who made his name from doing the soundtrack to Hope 93. On the march again, on the march again. People in the room are too young to know, so I understand. That was Sonny Neji. Then, First Bank's 100 years anniversary commercial. Man pass my bank, if I bank you, First Bank, now you be number one. That was Sonny Neji. 3 years before Mr. Fantastic Blue. So, from time immemorial, you know, people had, a few persons locally had made money, but there's a need for a structure. And, you know, with more evolution and development within the space, sync licensing. I just told you of a friend of mine who makes north of 200K a year from, and he's not a known name. He's just a producer. He was a guitarist. So imagine that we are able to then monetize music along those other lines. Film, commercial, gaming, you know, these are, as we would say, you know, nascent, growing areas. But I think that a deliberate collaboration between our film and our music industries can also accelerate that growth in terms of, okay, there's this bunch of artists who are not A-listers, B-listers, or C-listers, who won't get called to play shows at the hotel, who also don't do great streaming numbers, but they have this body of work that's just going to go to waste if nobody uses it. So how about someone aggregates all of that and puts it on a platform where a producer, for instance, knows if he pays a subscription of maybe 100K a year, it has access to use a certain number of tracks that you then, can prorate and distribute to the guys who created them. So there's a need, because what that does is then it puts more qualitative music soundtracks or music that they can license at the disposal of Nollywood versus giving one producer the responsibility of providing songs for a 3-hour movie. And I've been approached for stuff like that severally, and I'll be like, I don't know, man. You give me $1 million or 2 million and say, give me soundtracks for a 2-hour movie. It's daunting. End of the day, I'm just going to pop all manner of things that I have in my roster to you that might not be fit for purpose. So yeah, that's my viewpoint.
Sorry, I just wanted to introduce OC,
the big OC.
who's an on-air personality at Beat 99.9 and also the programs director for Megalectrics Limited, the operators of Beat 99.9 and Classic FM. It's nice to have you. Is that a mic?
Oh yeah, thank you. And apologies for coming late. I just got off air, so it's Lagos traffic. So
No
yeah.
worries, no worries.
So music licensing in Nigeria can be unnecessarily tedious, can really be a daunting pursuit. And I totally understand, because again, I wear different hats. I produce content, film, television. I produce music. I represent people who create music. I run a music publishing, company. I co-own labels. I have, music repertoire. So at some point, I am either making the music or representing the guys who make the music or actually deploying the music, We also run a consult. Phenom is here. Phenom can, if you have licensing stuff, they run a music licensing consult that can help you take a lot of the heavy lifting off you and just, get you what you need. Now, but even with those type of services, there's a huge problem with the music licensing and collective management space in Nigeria. That conversation will require a totally independent panel. It is deep, it is complicated, it is ugly, but if we're able to resolve the issues around collective management, it will make, so the reason why you have collective management organizations is for you to have actually a one-stop shop where you hit up somebody at maybe MCSN or COSON, at the touch of a button, the entire repertoire, the catalog of who they represent is available, and whatever you want to do. Sometimes they have rights to do some kind of licensing. And when they do not have the rights to do some kind of licensing, maybe like sync licensing, because again, for every licensing, every music, every work you use, there are a plethora of rights to consider, right? That's why I said, because you might use the sync rights, which is more or less like the sound recording, but there are publishing conversations, right, from composers to songwriters and all of that stuff. So it's not as straightforward as it is. And I understand the issue, the problems that people have trying to create, make film or TV shows and have to navigate all those, complexities to get music licensed properly. But it's a huge space. Like it's such a huge space. It's so underdeveloped that it can empower a large number, a large number of creatives and people who support creatives, right? So I have writers, I have, producers. If you hit me up, for example, and you say you want to make a film, and you tell me your budget for music is 7 million, what you're telling me effectively is that there's certain people I cannot call. I can't invite a Cobams into a project like that. And Cobams is by far one of is world class as far as music for film is concerned. Even when you talk about commercials, when you talk about the Sunny Day stuff, sorry, with no disrespect, even with Cobams, as big as he is, right? He's still making music for commercials. If you'll be shocked what a lot of how much of what you hear on some of the big
I know
commercials.
He did the BB Niger, he did the Big Brother Niger theme song recently, I believe.
Probably, yeah. It's, now that you mention it, but I know from like a bank ad, for example, 737 and all that. So a bunch of stuff like that he does, and he still does. So, so this is practical. Why I'm jumping and saying this is because it's very important information for people who create music and who represent them to know and understand and take advantage of. I have a friend. He's constantly obsessing about his music being stolen or using without clearance. Time and again and again and again, I get called out. I get called out for claiming publishing rights on a song that I actually contributed to, right? Okay, so I'm also a writer. I'm also a songwriter. And we have argued for a decade and a half about, I'm such a great writer. I wrote this stuff. I'm writing for everybody, and we're no longer like in great terms. But every now and then I ask myself, can somebody put a call through to this guy and tell him to get his legal people to sort out issues, right? That we have to do copyright infringement, but today, right? So he can focus on making music, right? Writing new songs for new projects. And he will find out that he probably can make 10 times more money from writing new music for film, for television, writing new music for all kinds of commercials, as opposed to sitting back and say, 24 years ago, 23 years ago, I wrote this song, I'm the best writer that... This is the best time for any songwriter, producer, anybody who makes music. Even record producers and writers who make music, they can get representation, from publishing admin companies that are outside the country, right? So it's not even a matter of a location of your friend living, abroad. You can, the guys here whose entire publishing catalog, somebody just hit me up. They want to do some stuff, two-face track, two Baba songs for a film project. Like, send me the titles. Why? Because what he wants, I might not control at Hypertech Digital. He might need to go to Kenny's Music. And if it's Hypertech Digital, I can't even clear. He has to go to Sony ATV, right? So this information is very important. For people who can write, who are very good, who can create music, there are huge opportunities to make commercial music, to get commercially, financially rewarded for making great music that's not necessarily commercially released for top 10 charts or stage performances and all of that.
Thank you for that. Osi, I wanted to ask. So you are more so you work more on the receiving end of music for ads and things like that. So do you find that with ads that have maybe music in them or original composition or licensed music, do you find that it translates to the audience more? Does anything like that come across on your end?
I think they do. Aside that, I also work in a label. So I understand all the complexities that, Bada and Ife have been talking about as well. So I will make reference to one ad, I think it was Airtel. It was done by Lade. I didn't even know who she was. I thought it was Tenny for the longest because they sound alike. And that advert did more for Lade as an artist than I think any song that she's put out. And it was 444. Yeah, because of the quality of the music and how it was played over and over again. So I believe that as somebody that works in the radio and the fact that I also consume a lot of advertising, every day I play close to like 100 ads every day. And the ones that stick are the ones I can sing along to, or the ones that have something that has to do with maybe a comic feature or something, but something that sticks, especially given our climate. Right from when we were kids or anything. If you remember, the Milo had the Milo clap, Bonvita had the B, Blue Band had the B without BB. So over time, songs being infused in advertising has been something that's stuck. So at the end of the day, though, like if you would rightly say, I feel like a lot of artists are shortchanging themselves because they believe that the only way to make money is to put out an EP, put out an album. I can decide, okay, as an artist, there's a guy called D20. D20, I like him because I think he's an amazing creative. And I used to stumble on a lot of his work on social media, you know, over and over and over again. And I've heard him on a couple of ads. So you can sit down and be like, okay, you know what, this year I'm not putting out any music. I just want to reach out to these agencies and say, okay, how many clients are warehoused with you? I can be able to do this, 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 this. And you see yourself raking in more money than you can do from licensing an EP or, you know, probably doing live events. Because at the end of the day, the complexity as regards trying to get rights for sync deals is crazy. So you sign an artist in Nigeria, for example, maybe to like a major. So those rights are sitting with the major. Then sometimes it's just maybe just recording. Sync is with somebody else, publishing is with somebody else. So by the time you try as much as you can to, okay, touch base with this person, touch base with that person, you even figure out that, okay, does this song even sit up the alley of what I'm trying to put across? So most times, I think it makes more sense when you can actually just create music and just fit it into what you're trying to sell. For example, I think one of the greatest soundtracks ever written or produced was by Ed Sheeran for The Hobbit 2. So the song is called I See Fire. I remember seeing that movie, and the song came at the end of the movie. I Shazammed it. It wasn't out anywhere. And I was like, such a beautiful song. Went on to sell millions of records. And when I saw a documentary after, you know, the movie came out, he said, you know, the producers knew that, okay, we want Ed Sheeran on this song. They flew him to Australia, made him watch the entire movie. So when you listen to the song and you hear I See Fire, reference to the dragon, if we die tonight, we all die together. So that's not a song you write maybe from a place of love or anything. So that's the song that you're writing tailored particularly to that product that you're trying to sell. So at the end of the day, like you rightly said, looking at the kind of climb, and also when you have people who know what they're trying to get from the product that they're trying to sell, it's always easy and better for you to you know, just have a product and say, okay, I think Two Face will make a fantastic record to this one. So I'm trying to sell a brand of toothpaste. So just do something around that and blah, blah. And yeah, it will work. So pretty much that.
Just to add very quickly that, you know, the reason a lot of creatives or let's say musicians within the space don't pay attention to the opportunities in film, as we already have established, is because they've been hardwired to think that they're only going to make money from streaming, from live, and from endorsements. And you know, it's dangerous for 95% of your music industry to think that way, because only about 5% are actually making money, maybe 3% are actually making money from these three revenue streams that I itemized. So if you look at it, there's a direct correlation in most parts, not just Hollywood, even in climes outside of there, where an artist who, as he said, wasn't as known. I don't know how well known Ed Sheeran was when that happened, but you found totally unknown artists get massive uplifts to their streaming numbers just on the back of a record they made for a movie. Because as he said, there's Shazam. So people are like, oh, this sounds great. What artist is it? Shazam it. And then they go and listen to records that the person released years before that had just maybe 10 listens. And those records go from just a few scores of listens to several hundreds of thousands. So if artists would recognize that film is actually a huge opportunity to promote my talent, they will be more open to, you know, doing soundtracks and whatnot. Because a lot of times, as a record label executive or talent manager, you get contacted by these producers. The moment you mention it to the guy, there's no morale. He really doesn't want to do it. You can tell. He's not as motivated as if you said, oh, we have an opportunity with, you know, maybe a major. They want to do a deal for maybe an EP or whatever. You know, ginger will naturally come from there because he thinks that he's going to get a lot of promotions. And yeah, so the point I was just going to add is artists need to recognize that beyond the money that you get paid, just doing soundtracks and doing them well can open the doorway to not just making money within film, but even sort of give life to your streaming numbers that you're promoting every day to get up, and you know he's not really answering you.
Just to add something to that, for the creatives that are probably listening to the session. So there's a certain level of talent and sublimeness that you need to balance making music for projects, right? Making music for projects is not as spontaneous as just making a song you want to release. Sometimes a regular song that you record for, in the moment might work for a situation. But when you're contracted to deliver music, there's usually a brief and there are usually references, right? And when they get into that mood, into the zone, they find out that to make the music, balance the creative quality with the messaging is a challenge. It's a very precarious balance. You're talking about the hobby stuff and all of that. The ones that do, the best ones are songs that are able to imply, they connect with the themes by implication, not by obvious, you don't like break it down and make it so basic and fundamental that you're basically
Telling the story through
telling the story, right? So the guys, the songwriters and the vocal performers, they need training, they need guidance in the fine art of creating music for projects, whether they're commercials, there might even be campaigns, right? Some of them might want to need a theme song for, say, cancer awareness, for example, and they cannot find anything that's out there. They want something unique. Yeah, so it's an important space. But again, in the music business, he mentioned something. He said 95%, right? In the music business, it was like that in the 70s. It was like that in the 80s, in the 90s. Today, I probably would wager you £1 million that it's going to be like that in the next 20 years. The number of people who would become stars are always less than 5% of the guys who are in the space. I didn't know that, Bada was an artist at a given time. I'm a failed rapper, right? I'm a failed rapper. So a lot of us are trying to make music and perform music and record music. I had a record deal. I was trying to be the guy in the foreground. But I have been able to achieve some milestones working in the background with a lot of, other creatives and all of that. So, my guys, a lot of us would not be stars.
And that's okay.
And it's okay. But we can develop hone our talent, our skills, and service performers. Behind every great in-demand artist, there's a large number of writers, producers, A&R people, and all of that, finding the songs, putting everything together. The records that you hear today, your fave basically heard the song like you heard it, and they muted the lead vocals, and they basically replaced the lead vocals with their own vocals. Sometimes even the final work you hear still contains a decent amount of the vocals from the original guys who made the demo, maybe in terms of the chorus and all of that. That's how. So we're not all going to be Tubaba or Davido or Burna Boy or Remas. So when you understand that, you're more intentional about how you develop, that other stuff. And believe me, there's a world of opportunities for guys who can write, who can produce, who can make music for projects.
Thank you so much for your contributions. I want to open it up to the audience. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, great, we have one over here. Any others? Oh, another one over there. Oh, two over there. Nice, nice. Okay, so she raised her hand first, I think. The hat.
Hi, everybody. I don't think I have more like a question, but I have like a comment per se. So I think you spoke about money being a yardstick for not getting like good musical artists to join in projects, right? And I'm wondering what happens to partnership. Movies make a shitload of money, excuse my word. Movies make a whole lot of money, right? But every time the budget for music comes out, it's always below par. How about partnerships? Like, if I'll give you an example. I watched You People, right? The movie had Laura London, Eddie Murphy. But if you notice the kind of tracks that was used in that movie, it was a lot of buzzing tracks on TikTok. And inside the movie, when you watch to the part where you have like the pre-wedding dinner where they broke up, you'd see Columbia Records. That's not by chance. That's due to partnership. Why hasn't the film industry opened it up to partner with musical artists or the labels to get a bigger picture?
Okay.
Also,
Okay,
yeah. Also, lastly, my last comment is we're all creatives here, but I've been to like 2 of these events, and the invite on the music, the artist side is quite low. We all listen to music, whether in passing or consciously, but there's this lack of collaboration between the film industry and the music industry. All I've heard Bada said was to attack the musicians and be like, musicians don't know the opportunities, but I don't think the music industry also take like, you know, conscious efforts to try to involve the musical artists to get them educated, because I mean, most of the music professionals you see as an institution in Nigeria, there's really no institution in Nigeria teaching people about like the music business. Most information you find it online, right? Except you decide to, you know what, let me go for mentorship and internship and all of that sort. So I think like, instead of, you know, saying what the problem is, I feel like it should be like a serious conscious effort from both parties, both film industry and music industry, to make it work. So that's all I have.
Okay, so what I want to say is I hear you, and I think what you said makes a lot of sense. When you listen to, when you watch a lot of foreign films, you hear a lot of dope songs. I'm sure a lot of people have seen Creed 3, yeah. And if you notice, Dreamville, that's J. Cole's record label, which is licensed under UMG, produced the entire soundtrack. So what happens is, those movie producers have budgets running into the millions of dollars for soundtracks. So what they do is they shop for, oh hi, we're trying to create a soundtrack for this movie. So Dreamville did the entire thing. And why I'm so particular about that was Dreamville is licensed under UMG where I work. And we had 2 Nigerian artists on the Creed soundtrack. We had KLP, we had Arya Star. You know, do stuff on that too as well. And even a lot of people have seen King of Boys, and I think the first one had Original Gangster. That was Reminisce and Adekunle Gold. Fucking brilliant song. So all I'm saying in essence is for collaborations to happen, the music industry too must look for opportunities to make these collaborations happen, you know, as well. Kemi Adesiba is doing To Kill a Monkey right now, and I reached out to Kemi. I was like, oh, hi, I'm working with this record label, and I'm interested in curating music for this. And he was like, oh, we could have had this conversation long enough. We've already sorted that out. So at the end of the day, though, when people who are making movies, they think about soundtracks as an afterthought when they're in post-pro. Yeah, saying, oh, okay, we need to put, yeah, we need to put this there, we need to put that there, we need to do this, and we need to do that. So that's what happens, you know, particularly. So at the end of the day, those songs like Original Gangster, you know, it was written for that movie, you understand? So I think it's not really a music industry thing, because they are there. The artists are there looking, they have tons and tons of music, looking for a way to push them out to and everything. So the music industry, the movie industry needs to consciously think, okay, when I'm, what's the word right now? When I'm budgeting for this movie or anything, I need to also, you know, take a huge part of this budget and license music. So at the end of the day, though, we also, yeah, you say movies make a ton of money. Yeah, COVID has killed cinema anyway is gradually coming back. So most of the titles right now are going from post-production to streaming platforms. So at the end of the day, I don't want to go into the mechanics of if the streaming platforms are paying a fair share for these titles. But when you collect, like, say, $100,000 for a title and you pay your talent and you do post-production, you have nothing left to even license the music. So at the end of the day, we also need to increase budgeting that goes into the making of these movies. And also, movie executive producers and producers need to actively think of, okay, you know what, Cobhams, I'm giving you the budget to make music for this title. Then we'll start to hear really great songs, in our movies. I was having a conversation today with Mr. Easy. It was on my show, and his new album is called Evil Genius. And I was told him, I was like, how did you not have somebody on your A&R team license the Evil Genius soundtrack that Stanley Okorie did a long time ago? And he was like, he just flew, and he was like, wow, he didn't even know. I'm like, yeah, you could talk to him, you could license it, and you could maybe infuse it in your performance sets or anything. So there have to be people on both sides, both the A&R side, both the record label side, and also people from the movie side, constantly trying to find a middle ground as regards, okay, how can we be able to, merge together and actually make music for the different titles that are coming out.
Thank you so much, OC.
Okay, the B part of your question, I don't know if it was a question or you were just making a comment, an observation, yeah. So, having worked as a performer first, talent manager, and these days head of a multinational media business that's constantly working with talent, a lot of them over the years are my personal friends. I'm the last person to attack, musicians. Are we involving them in these kinds of conversation where awareness levels can be raised? I'll say yes. And if
not enough, from my observations.
Well,
I'm sorry.
your observations are not necessarily accurate, so just let me finish.
Yeah, but actually, looking at this room, my observation is spot on. Because
it is not spot on, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So the people who show up at events do not represent the people that got invited. I just finished a 4-day event called the Africa Creative Market, right? Which is a similar event to Afrif, only that it focuses on music, dance, fashion, and film, right? And musicians were invited to sit on panels. They gave excuses, not for the first time. Ask the people who organize Afrif how many times they've invited artists and what is the success rate. They won't come. Now let me see, I've worked with talent all my life. If it's not a night show, if it's not something glamorous, there are very few artists who understand the value of these intellectual discussions. You are not going to put a rope around the neck of that guy and drag him out to come and sit and listen. Where, like I said, you can't make blanket statements about, oh, this is how all artists behave. I know a number of artists who, prioritize stuff like this. Banky W opened ACM last year. He gave a keynote speech. There is a couple of guys that are go-to. That they understand what it means. And MI, I was on a panel with MI during this Afrif just a few days ago. But I can tell you, like Beat FM, 99.9% of guys who are performers do not prioritize. They won't come. And that is describing the status quo. I'm not saying that's what we'll continue to obtain. We can't give up. We got to keep trying to involve them. Sometimes the people who come to an event like this, and just about maybe 20% of people who benefit from it, because the videos from here go online. Maybe if the guy can't come, maybe his talent manager can be deliberate enough to say, watch this, listen to this podcast. Listen, that's how the awareness levels go. But I think it would be unfair to say that they are not involved.
Let me attack the talents because there's friends and he probably doesn't want to attack them. Let me, with my full chest, right? Let me attack the talents. There are people. Please pay attention. Look at me, eyeball to eyeball. No. Just hear me out. There are talents who have been active in music for 20 years. 20 years, right? And as I sit today, it's, let me be practical. Someone dropped something on social media, on Instagram a few days ago and tagged me. He said he was speaking on behalf of a guy called AJ Natives. AJ Natives, wonderful songwriter, singer. If you know the history of Afrobeats from the early 2000s, late 90s, you know AJ Natives, right? AJ Natives has collaborated with Innocent Idibia on a few songs. Officially Blind, If No Be You, Oya Come Make We Go, a few songs. So this person goes on, this person is also an artist, goes on Instagram, rants, and tags me and says, we should do the needful for AJ, and pay AJ his royalties or something. And that was a couple of days after Blackface went on the Honest Bunch to call me out about royalties and all of that. I've known Blackface from 1997. And it's not possible that I've not had conversations with Blackface at least 10 times since 1997 to 2023 about this simple process. What's the simple process? Artists do not pay artists publishing royalties. I've worked in this space for 30 years plus. Not one day have I seen Sonny Neji receive money for publishing, then ask a producer or a co-writer of a song, so I got 100K, send me your account details, let me wire you 20K from the publishing income. No. How does it work? It's very simple. If you create a piece of work together, you have something called a split sheet, an agreement that on this song, Bada, OC, and Efe were writers. She's the vocal performer. Over 100%, we're going to split 25, 25, 25, 25, right? We put that on a split sheet. If I'm represented by PRS for music, she's represented by MCSN, he's represented by COSON, he's represented by SAMRO or something, what happens is this. At the level of payment collection, when 100 Naira is paid for the use of that music, my representatives would make a claim for my 25%. They will receive on my behalf. They will take the administrative fee and they will remit to me, right? Same goes, nobody's going to send her money to me, So I tell AJ, I tell Black, once the split sheets, if there are issues with the split sheet, let the admin guys tidy it up. Once the split sheets are done and they are properly done, revert to your publishing admin or your collecting society. Your money would not go to Two-Face or Efe. Your money will go to your collecting society. So instead of going to social media and Instagram to rant and tag Efe about royalties not collected, go through. Now, you would think that something as basic as that, the talent will understand, but I can bet my last Naira, 70% of the people who have made music in this country for the last 25 years do not understand how publishing works. They will go on Instablog, they will go on Mufasa Tunde Not, they will comment, they will consume, they will read about gossip. They would engage on any and everything but the basic business knowledge. When I've worked, there's something called NEC Live, Nigerian Entertainment Conference Live, 10 years down the road. I have been a part of NEC Live. At Afrima, we have a business summit. Time and again, OC is here. Once we had this conversation about copyright, CMOs, 70% of the members of COSON who have their money in COSON do not understand what's going on there. When you say, let's have a conversation, you invite everybody, they don't show up, they're not interested. And I'm calling out names so that there are clear references. So I tell AJ again, whoever represents you at the publishing level, let them engage. Once the paperwork is sorted, your money will go straight to your account. It will not go to Two-Face. How difficult is that?
And I just want to add one thing so we can go on to the next question. There actually are a lot of educational programs for artists that recently, I think they're still on, Music Business for Africa by Godwin Tom. A lot of people are on that. There are other platforms. There are even platforms for artists to upload their music and then have it possibly distributed for films. I know there's Afro Soundtrack by someone who's called Unique Oliver. Maybe you can look him up. There are also people who they go after older artists, maybe people who have had songs released in the 80s and the 90s, and then they are able to speak to those artists and say, okay, let me represent you, and then if someone wants to license your song, I will speak to them, negotiate on your behalf, and then I will remit to you. They're called Digital Music and Commerce Limited. I think Foza is the president of that. Oh, look at that, he's right here. Okay, I'm plugging you. So there are people who do these things. Most of the things that we are complaining about, there are people who do them somewhere. Maybe they're not as popular as we would like, but they're there. If you look, you would find them.
So, sorry, can I quickly add to that? So the reason I take what you said a little, yeah. Sorry, don't worry. I'll take it here.
I mean, you owe me a photo after this session, though, say it. So I'm a young music business executive, right? And I saw this, I'm like, oh, cool, let's go. So I sent it to all my friends that are also young like me. And we pull up, and we get bounced at the gates. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, these are conversations that music people need to be a part of. I know artists ordinarily, no offense to artists, right? They are literally babies. You have to pest them, you have to negotiate, you have to, you have to grease elbow, you have to make them understand. But if you can get the members of the team into the conversation, it helps to smoothen it out. Because you are from a music perspective and you expect the artist to understand. But me, I work with him every day. I know what he doesn't like, I know his mood, I know, okay, today I'm not in a good mood. Okay, maybe if I want to tell you about movies, I need to give you a bottle of wine. But you don't know that fact. So the music business people, especially us, the young ones, need to be allowed to come into this space, be comfortable, so that for the next 10 years, we can start tackling these issues little by little.
Thank you. At least we've moved from absorbing the talent of blame to what we can do next steps. So the final note for me really is just to say that personally, it's my life's ambition to ensure that we give everything it takes to educate the ecosystem, right? And if it was on a panel at my event, Africa Creative Market, trust me, I took money out of pocket on the day to rent buses, to go and get students to sit in and listen to what will primarily benefit artists of today. Because I know that they won't come. We reached out to them, we invited them, we spoke to talent and record companies, talent management companies. Only a few of them showed up. So my belief is that approaches going forward must focus on maybe not just the artist of today. You may have what to do around that, but the artists of tomorrow, the next in line, who are hungry, who are still receptive of the knowledge, right? Because the moment people start to pop, and you tell them to come and sit down at Soul Beach for 2 hours to listen to Efe Bada and this thing, they will ask you if there's something wrong with you. They're not going to come. So we will consider all approaches, but what I can guarantee you is that we're not giving up.
Sorry, with your kind permission, please. Speak with your talents. Speak with the people within your network. One of the key problems is the attitude towards conversations and organizations, right? The attitude is not right. A lot of the talents, particularly the ones that are popping, they have some kind of apathy to anything organized conversation. So they don't join the guilds, whether the Actors Guilds, they don't join the P-Man, right? So if a few days ago something popped with Mobad and the entire nation is in a frenzy, right? And people are asking where the musicians union, But nobody was asking, was Mobad a registered member of PMAN? Right? So if you're not a member of PMAN, if you never gravitate towards PMAN, when you have a situation with your label or something, how does PMAN intervene if you have never had any kind of dealings with them? So encourage them, right? The general attitude, the people I've spoken with, they tell you all those guild stuff now for people who don't, pass with the old glory, right? They think once you say Actors Guild, they think you are talking Actors Guild because you're no longer getting acting jobs. They think that, so there's this mindset around organized action and associations and conversations that we all need to try to change. And the talents, I made a statement. I said they go to the blogs, they burn data, but they rather engage gossip than engage content that can help them understand the tools of their trade better. That is on them. You can lead the horse to the stream. You can't force them to drink. Thank you.
On that note, we will need to bring this session to an end. Thank you very much to my panelists for your contributions, which have been very engaging. Thank you so much to the audience as well for listening and for your questions. We hope to have similar conversations next year at AFRIF and at other platforms so that we can continue these conversations and continue to grow our film and music industry. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, our panelists. If you can just stay for a picture, and then after, interviews outside. So right now, we'll have cocktail and then a speed dating session with the members of the KwaZulu-Natal Film Commission right after. So if you can just move to the little enclave outside for that session. And yes, we'll reconvene at 2 p.m. for the next session. But if you can please just move to the KwaZulu-Natal session and also help yourself to cocktails. Thank you very much. We'll be back here at 2 p.m.
Sitting there looking at me, just take one step at a time, cause if you jump, you will never believe the thorns of life. Am I wanting and waiting for me and you? They make it better say, I want to run away. Run away, run away, run away. Where they just go. Run away, run away, run away. Where they just go. Never It's okay, hype media.
Welcome to another exhilarating day at AFRIF, where Africa cinema takes center stage, bringing to you workshops, panels, and sessions. This is your 12th edition.
My name is Debomo Peterson. I came to AFRIF from South Africa and I'm very excited to be here.
Well, AFRIF is like you asking me what brings me home, because AFRIF is my home basically.
I'm pretty excited. It's my first edition. So I feel like networking, meeting people, meeting directors we don't get to see on the reg. Wonderful. It's been a great experience. I've already attended 3 sessions. I've met new people. I've learned ways that I can get my skills to work.
This is a really great opportunity for all of us to collaborate as African filmmakers, because that's how you're gonna get great movies.
I took a lot of notes, which I plan on putting into action.
It's amazing to be back, to see Africa this strong and this big.
I'm looking forward to what Mama Nike does, really giving us pride in our culture, in our textiles, in our art.
Feeling joy and feeling happy to see our youth wearing a different anything cultural activity. They are always there for us, and we thank you people for making it possible for everybody to see the creativity of our own country through the textile.
I'm looking forward to seeing this documentary, Mama Nike, the story of Adire. I really want to know it. I mean, we've seen her, we've experienced her in different ways with the gallery, with the arts, with culture. I want to know what that story looks like.
Of course, Mama Nike represents all of us women, a Nigerian woman that embodies what we do.
I believe that this is the season where we pull in and pull together everything African, including the fashion.
So much opportunity that we're not even taking advantage of. Physical infrastructure, so technology-driven channels, all are on the table for us to explore, to make money and to make the industry vibrant.
Now we have Netflix here, beautiful. Netflix Nigeria, we have Amazon Nigeria. But I'm thinking, are we also thinking of kind of refining this thing within the country and then export outside?
I'm curious if you have thought about building infrastructure that allows you to tap into the fees and the resources abroad as a way to bring it back here.
I don't think we need the 100 years you needed to get to where you got to in Los Angeles now. All right, I think we can leapfrog. And I think these conversations which we're having right now, that is how this thing starts. All right. And in 5 years, in 10 years, we will be at par.
As we conclude today at AFRIF, get ready for more tomorrow. Thank you for joining us in celebrating Africa cinema.